Appreciate you letting me in the studio today and make some magic and make a good show.
Yeah, you got the nice bed sheets in the back.
Yeah, I love it.
Backdrop.
I love it. It's good for sound and all that. Awesome. Yeah, so with the show being Life After High School, kind of take us to where you are now from that decision you made leaving post-secondary and kind of what took you to where we are now.
So straight out of high school, I was always into sports. I wanted to go play basketball, so I actually went to Cambridge for 1 year.
Nice.
That was after university. So I went to Cambridge for 1 year, studied for my real estate, and my goal was really I wanted to own a business, be my own boss. Be my own boss, really. And I know real estate's not really. It is owning your own business, but you're more you already know what you're doing, so you don't have to develop a new system. You kind of know that you're selling real estate, and I wanted to get into the investing part of it too. So that's really what shot me into that aspect of my life, but I know that was all over the place. A little rough start there.
Interesting. What kind of made that choice into investing, and what triggered your brain to say, hey, this is a good idea, let's do that, let's go jump in? Because you bought a property when you were in third year, is that right?
Going into fourth.
Going into fourth?
After third,
Yeah. So take me through that process. What was that like from when you decided to, I'm going to start saving money? Because nobody just turns the corner and goes, hey, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Here's this much money.
So
what was that like?
My dad got me into it. So he explained what OPM means, other people's money, and the way that you can invest using other people's money. So you can borrow money that buys an asset that makes you money.
Yeah.
I've always been about creating the systems where I can eventually sit back, still make passive income, make money while I'm not working as hard, right? So I can work on other projects because my mind's all over the place. I like to I like to learn new things, start new things. I find it interesting. Kind of like you. That's what the podcast, right?
Exactly.
You're learning nonstop.
Yeah, it's the best
awesome.
part. Yeah.
So the best way I found to do that was doing real estate and owning rental properties. So my dad kind of just guided me, and I bought my first one, and I moved in, and I was making $400 a month and living for free. So that was my first big win, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty exciting.
Sick. So what was that first time buying a home like when you were that age? That's pretty intimidating of a process.
It is, and I did what all the first time home buyers do is bring their parents through.
Right.
And just the big thing, and a lot of people hire coaches to invest in real estate, but it's to get that confidence. And you're right, it is daunting. And I was like, oh man, what if I don't make my mortgage payment? But my dad, I always knew it's nice to have my dad in the background, just be this is it's a no-brainer. Yeah,
you have a support system there.
You're making money no matter what. And I was like, you're right, I just got to jump in. So basically just jumping in, buying it, moving in upstairs. It really got the process started with the wheels turning, and I just wanted to buy more and more and more.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you have now, a few properties, eh?
Yeah. 3?
Well,
actually, I sold the first one we were just talking about
a
couple months ago, but then I just bought 2 more that one of them I'm going to move into. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Duplex or a...
I'm going to convert it. At first, my girlfriend wasn't too sure because she's like, well, because she's pregnant now, like we were talking about.
Yeah. So congratulations again.
Super excited about that. And she's like, well, someone else is going to be living in our house.
Yeah.
Right? So I've always experienced that, and I'm used to it, and I kind of like it because you make an extra $1,000 a month.
Yeah. 100%.
But someone who has never been in that field, it's weird, right? It's
a little bit out of their element.
Yeah. So I'm slowly working towards experiencing the benefits, $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
It's not bad, and it only adds up the more you do it, right? Yeah, it's kind of a win-win thing. And now, what's your take on, in terms of real estate investing versus stock market investing? Why is that the path that do you was it pushed, not forced on you, but it's hey, this, or it's because you seem like a smart enough guy where it's hey, I could do passive, right?
Yeah.
On both. Why is real estate the one you focused on? What's your take on that with stocks?
Yeah. So your return on cash is why I did it. I still have a stock market portfolio. I love playing. I'm not that. I don't know much about it, as much as some people, but I just for fun, right?
Yeah, see what you do.
Your return on investment is way higher. So I don't want to get too technical because it's not an investing podcast, but
do it.
Basically,
do it for me, dude. For me, dude.
Okay, the reason I did it is because if you have $25,000, you can either buy a duplex.
Yeah.
And that duplex, let's say it cash flows $500 a month. Right. Okay, so you have 20 grand to invest. Mm-hmm. So you can use that 20 grand to buy a property that's worth, let's say, $300,000. You put 5% down. On that property, you're cash flowing, let's say, an easy number, let's say $500 a month.
Yeah.
So 500 times 12 is $6 grand.
Yeah.
So on that $20,000 of your own money, yes, you get a mortgage and it ends up being more, but on that $20,000, you're making $6 grand a year on it, right?
Yep.
So that's 30%. $3 grand for each 10,000. So that's the math we're looking for.
Nice.
So it's 30% of your cash.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Plus, you have an asset that's going up in value.
Yeah, just with the equity you get.
Plus,
more.
part of your payment is paying down the house.
Right.
So you're making 30% plus the equity increase plus the amount that you're paying down. Mm-hmm. So the math works out to about 50% of your cash invested. So you're making 50% a year. In the stock market, the average, or in a mutual fund, is 5 to 6%.
And you're not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right.
Some years are down, some years are up, right? Mm-hmm. So, but on average, it's 5 to 7% when you buy a mutual fund. Yeah. So the cash on cash return is a lot higher. That's why I invested in real estate.
Interesting. So you went in at 5% when you bought your first.
Yeah, because I moved in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So why 5% and why not 20? Like from what I know is that CMHC covers the rest of that 20%, right?
So yeah, CMHC insures your mortgage if you're below. So if you only put 5% down, you barely have skin in the game.
Right.
So the bank is risky lending you money. Yeah. Right. If I decide I just want to leave my house and forfeit the house, then I'm only like 10 grand, 15 grand in, so it's not a big deal. But so they get mortgage insurance, which CMHC is. So if I default, CMHC is like guaranteeing me as a borrower. Okay. Yeah. So then there is a fee associated to it.
Yeah. I've always been told 20% as like if I go in on a down payment on something, go in with 20%. Like, but then it feels like there's no ability then in that case to insure the bank's money.
Yeah. So, but you don't really need to if you go in at 20%. Yeah. But the reason you don't go in at 20% is with interest rates being so low. Right. Putting more down is saving you right now sub 2%. So you're saving 2%. But that money that you're using to save 2% could be making you 6. Right. Or more somewhere else. Yeah. Right? So instead of saving 2, you're trying to make 4. Or make 6, or make 8. Or if you invest in real estate, make 50. Yeah.
So who takes care of your properties? Like, how do you manage all that stuff?
Right now, me. Honestly, it's not that much work.
No?
It's stressful, like, I'll say one week out of the year where something goes wrong, they call you. I had a basement flood in one of mine because the girls put some tampons down the drain. God damn it. I know.
Like the drain, the whole thing. Oh, no. That happens. So
that was a super stressful 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I had to get, like, insurance involved and all that. But then the other 50 whatever weeks of the year, I was just getting rent money, not doing anything. Yeah. So it's worth it long term, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, what's the process like from when a client comes in to purchasing a home? Like, take me through that. If I were to come to you and say, hey, this is my budget, this is what I want to do, what's that process look like?
You just have a genuine conversation, kind of like we're doing, and then you talk about what are your needs and wants. Yeah. But honestly, the best thing is to just, once you get pre-approval, of course, so find out what you can afford, so you're not shopping for things that, like, you think you can afford 400, and then you find out you can only afford 3. Yeah. Your hopes are going to be way up, right? Right. So find out what you can afford, but then you just go see homes. Yeah. Like, you can do as much research and prep as you want, but people that didn't buy last year are kicking themselves because they're missing out on 20%. Right? So you can get the analysis paralysis for sure. Yeah. But get out there and just go look at homes, because that's the best way you'll get educated on the market. You'll be like, okay, this is what this sold for, and you actually get to see them. It's so much different in person than in the pictures.
So now, it's funny you mentioned that. You say educated, and like you're a younger guy, and a lot of the reviews you have of yourself, and I'm sure you've seen them, the one that I find is constant is knowledgeable. What is something, with that being said, that, how do you find that knowledge? Like, what's your learning process like in this industry? Like, how do you retain information and enough and well enough to be able to deliver it to clients to a point that the majority and the constant review is Tristan's very knowledgeable. He's very educated, well prepared, and preparation comes with being educated on the subject, right? So it's like,
I agree.
What's your process like?
It's just loving it. Like I love real estate. I love investing just because I think it's like one of the best ways to build long-term wealth.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't say that you don't call it studying. I'm just intrigued all the time. Like what was the percentage that went up last year? Why did it go up?
Yeah.
You know, and then I go look at the historical data, or like I wonder what the average house price is this month. You know, just because I want to know.
What is it?
Yeah, this month it was like 374.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so that being said, there's not enough data. Like,
there's
only
3 months in,
exactly.
barely.
And in Sudbury, especially, like 3 months worth of houses, it's hard to actually like a couple $1 million houses will sway that, right?
So hard, yeah.
But that's still 50,000 above last year's average, which is crazy.
Why is that? Like, why is that? Why is it so much higher? Like, what effect? I guess what I'm asking is, what effect does COVID and this everybody staying at home doing nothing? Not everybody, obviously, right? But like most people staying at home, being forced to work from home. I mean, and like some forced to do nothing, forced to do different things. Is how does that play into the housing market? How does that affect it?
I don't have the exact answer, but what I kind of believe is it's the same reason the stock market just bounced back, right?
Yeah.
It's I feel like as much as a lot of people lost their jobs, there's so many people with just money that they're not spending by not going out, not going to trips.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of cash just sitting in people's accounts, or they're like, what do I do with it?
Point. Yeah.
Right? And I don't know how it got to this point where it's just crazy. But there's so many, like right now in Sudbury, just so many down south buyers looking for deals up here because their cash flow is there.
Right.
It actually exists when down south it doesn't.
Yeah, and the lake, like all the waterfront property you get up here versus down there, price wise is day and night.
I tell them, you sell your like your bungalow in Toronto and you come up here, you're a king, right? You're on the lake.
Oh,
for like $1 million, you know.
Yeah. Jeez, that's always something that's fascinated me about why people do it. And then, because I did want to talk to you about this after. I guess a proposition for you after we'll talk about it.
Okay.
But, yeah. What is when it comes to recommending people and people who take care of like the work for you and stuff, do you do all that, like all renovations and stuff by yourself, or like do you subcontract that out, or do you have like friends and family in that industry? Like how does that work? Feel like how do you go about recommending and picking somebody, stuff like that?
So yeah, I have like a referral list that I have, and I refer to that most of the time, and there's people that I've either done jobs for me or that I know that do a good job for like clients and stuff. So I recommend their names first and foremost. For me, I always outsource everything.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I know that I'm good at, and I try to focus on that, and then the rest I just outsource. But I am doing rentals at one of my houses.
Nice.
You get your mind off things. It's the way I relax.
It does, yeah.
I just go down there and like
build shit, leave my phone upstairs, yeah.
And then you like the wall gets put up. There's
Yeah.
insulation in it. You're like, wow, cool. You know,
Here
like,
we go.
You see the progress. So I enjoy that.
Nice.
But only where I'm living. I don't want to have to drive to get there.
I see, yeah. Only the one that you're going to be living in. Okay. Interesting. Now, you consider yourself very, like an avid reader, right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I read a decent amount, but not a lot.
No?
I go in spurts.
Yeah?
Definitely. Like I go on some spurts and I read a ton, and then...
So, what I'm wondering is, do you have like a book or something or a big lesson that you learned from anything you've read in the last, let's say, year that stood out to you the most?
There's a few.
Nice.
There's a few. I just want to... You know what? Have you ever read The Alchemist?
No, it's on the list, dude.
You
No.
can if you want. So
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
it's just that's probably the one. It's the most recent one too that I've read. So
nice.
I think it's the most fresh in my memory. Just finished it last week, and it's just it's this guy he's looking for this final. He's looking for the treasure.
Yeah.
And to get there, he's going through all these trials and tribulations, and his path, like his career changes. But this is like in the olden days, so there's no cell phones and stuff. But his career his past just keeps changing, and then people keep popping up in his life, and then he starts to realize like this is supposed to happen, and then he starts to end up just like believing in not knowing what's going to happen, but it's the right thing that's going to happen for him to get to his final goal, even though it might look bad in the moment.
Huh. So it's
like he loses his job, or like sells all his sheep or whatever, and then he's like lost. But then it leads him to finding this job that makes him a bunch of money, where he uses that money to go try to find the treasure. You know, and then it's like it's cool.
Interesting. So is it like a self-improvement book, or is it like bit of nonfiction?
It is,
bit of
but he tells it in such a cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like following this guy around, and it's cool.
Have you read Atomic Habits?
I have it on my bookshelf, but I haven't read it yet.
Because I was going to say I'd exchange that one for that one.
Yeah?
Because that's the one, dude. I have helped with that book just from pure, I guess, half being a friend to the buddy of mine, and then half using the psychology that this guy, I think it's James Clear, writes about, that with the whole, like, I helped him quit smoking. He was already, like, trying to get there, but there was just one thing he couldn't shake. He would always go back to it. And it's not like he was hacking like 2 packs of darts a day, and then all of a sudden he went cold turkey because I said, dude, this one line from this book changed everything. No, he was trying to wean off it, and he couldn't quite do it, and he would do it socially, like some people don't drink, but they do it when they're with friends. Mm-hmm. So there's a line in the book, and I might misquote it, I hope I don't, but it's along the lines of, if you saying, oh no, thanks, I don't want a cigarette, I'm trying to quit smoking, you not smoking is somebody you're trying to be. It's not who you are, right? So they say, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. That's what I mean, right? It's like a little... Yeah. And then he's like, so instead say, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. And I was like, what? But the way it trailed off and that little piece of information, I was like, that's not just related to... It's so easy when you say it with that example, right? Wow. And that's what he did. So like, whoa. So next time I was with my friend, I was with them, and he's out, and they're like, and all of us, and he's like, this guy asked, he's like, hey, you guys want a cigarette? And I was like, no, I'm not a smoker. And my friend goes, I'm trying to quit, and I was like, no, he's not a smoker, he's not going to have it. And he's like, well, I'm like, bro, are you a smoker? And he's like, I'm like, are you? What are you? And he's like, no. And I'm like, there you go, there's your answer. And then a week or two after, he's like, dude, I haven't smoked in 3 days or 5 days or whatever since I saw him. And I was like, no, like, all right, little victories, yeah. So I didn't, awesome. Yeah, it was cool. And he's like, man, I could never shake that last, like, influence. I'm like, just say you're not, like, no, it's not who I am. You know, you have, like, that reassurance, confidence in yourself, and then that little tidbit of switching up the wording changes the whole psychology behind that. I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. Yeah,
I'll have to read that.
Just that little thing, and that's like in the first. It's not even too far into the book. So if you like get busy halfway through reading it, you'll still have that.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you're like, oh,
yeah.
No, yeah. And like that's one because the one I have is it's not my copy originally, but there's a lot of spots that are highlighted, and that was one of them. So I see this, and I see notes and sticky notes, and some people like forbid people to do that, but no, I'll put stickies and write. Yeah, exactly.
That's the best thing.
And that's what they did.
Yeah.
I guess Buddy had highlighted some parts, and that was one of them. One sentence, I was like, this is the first one. Oh, interesting. And then I picked all the other ones, and then just started reading the book.
You know, that's the next book I'll start. Every morning I read an educational book, and at night I read like just fiction or whatever for fun.
Yeah.
So I need a new morning book because I just finished mine.
Where'd you get that like strategy?
I made it up myself.
Yeah.
I was caught like always. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, always. I'm never doing things just for fun. Like it's always.
Yeah, there's
things,
always
like,
a second.
I was like trying to get better at, and I'm like, why am I always like trying to get better?
Yeah.
Like, it's good to do that, but, like, you also enjoy yourself. So I was like, oh.
Yeah. That's what I found doing. I would do something like that, and I've heard people use that, like, exact same example where you kind of let your mind be creative and run free if you read a nonfiction, or a fiction, sorry, I mean. Like, if you read more of, like, a story book instead of less of a self-improvement or educational, right? You get more of, like, a creative spin, and then you go to bed, and, like, your brain's creative juices are flowing, whatever the technical terms are. Yeah, something like that. Because I know, because I've heard of that before. That's why I was wondering where you got it from. I was like, I've heard people use that before. I don't know who. Like, it's interesting that you came up with that.
I find there's a limit, too, of, like, the amount you can, like, try and learn, because I feel like a lot of it is very similar in, like, the self-improvement books. You know, like, they all have great like that line you got out of that book, right? But a lot of it is just, like, a different way of positioning something other people say, right? Like, so I don't know, I still love self-improvement books. I read them all the time, but yeah,
that was one thing that I noticed, and to your point of learning, that's why we're trying to do everything, and I'm very similar in this way, and I notice that with a lot of people my age, they're either one way, which is similar to me, like what you are, where you're like, I'm soaking it all up in my head. Everything that's out there, I need to know it. And it gets draining and overwhelming more often than not. And what I want to know is, what do you do to re-energize your brain and get it back to, like,
it's funny. It's funny you asked that, because I just realized that my body does this. I go in, like, these 2-week cycles where for 2 weeks I'm, like, super motivated. Wake up early, reading, doing everything perfectly, and then working super hard. You know, I'm on my game, and then I need 3 or 4 days of rest where I'm, like, anxious, nervous, like, and I'm just not in the game. My mind, I'm just, like, tired. At first, I thought there was something wrong with me.
Yeah, it's similar.
Yeah. You got that too?
Yeah, when you said the anxiety, I was like, like, I'll stop working and be tired and be like, why am... Like, what can I do? What do I got? Yeah, it's weird. So.
And I realized that that's just me needing the rest. So instead of, like, being... like, I was anxious about being anxious. I was like, man, like, this is not me. I'm never, like... Not never anxious, but...
Pretty zoned in, you have pretty good control over.
And then I'm focused, and then these 3 days, and people notice it around me too.
Right.
So, like, now my assistant always says, like, is this your down days? Right? Because I come in, like, a little bit, like, less, like,
on edge. What are you doing?
But now I just embrace it. I'm like, okay, these are the days I need, right? Nice. Just sleep in an extra hour or whatever, and then I'm a couple days later, you know, I'm just right back at it, and I love it.
Nice. That's
I just figured that out.
Yeah, so it's not crazy. You might be when this happens. When somebody asks me something like this in 2 weeks, then I'm gonna be like, let's get Tristan on my show, and he explained this whole thing that I was having an issue with, and he solved my problem, dude. Thank you. That's a
let yourself relax.
Yeah, thank you, man. That was something I was, like, looking for the answer for, and so when I found myself asking people that more often than not, and some say they go on trips to decompress. I used to do that, where I'd be like, nah, I need to get out. And it's like, well, my escape would be, I don't need to leave the country for 2 weeks and then come back. When I do that, I come back and I'm like, all right, hammer down. But it's not feasible to do that every 3 weeks.
No, exactly.
Right? So you saying, like, you snap a bit more, don't, or, like, sleep in a bit longer, don't put that stress on yourself. But it's like you see people doing things. That's the social media thing, right? The era, and you're like, everybody's hustling and I'm not. All right, I gotta do something.
I realized that when I heard Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And I was just, like, watching one of his videos, and he said the exact same thing. Like, that guy's a hustler, and he, like, always makes fun of people who don't hustle.
Yeah.
And he said it himself. He's like, probably 30 days out of the year, I wake up and I'm not down.
Recently too. Yeah.
I'm not down to do stuff. And I'm just like,
thanks.
Gary Vaynerchuk said that? Okay.
See a fourth wall? You went right through that too, saying that. Yeah, that's something that's. Like, there's the escape with the friends, there's, like, going on different trips and stuff and adventures, but then there's having that time to be decompressed, and not so much, like, there's being alone and then there's lonely.
Yeah.
Right? And I think people affiliate the two together, or associate the two together, sorry. And I think that's something that I try to overcome. It's like, because that anxiety hits, right? And you're like, oh, it's like, no, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
You kidding? I can hear people speaking all around.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is that happening? It's like, oh, I probably shouldn't be out here right now. I should probably go home. I should probably like sleeping. I should probably tell people not to bother me. Stuff like that. But,
does it happen at like parties and stuff, or like?
If I'm drained, you went decaf, and I was thinking, you know what, I could go decaf, but we're watching fights at our like club tonight. So I'm like, oh, this fight's gonna go late, and I don't want to be like anxious when I'm there, not having fun, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'll go caffeine. I'll go caffeine. But
that's why I do decaf. Just I'm high strung all the time, so it's like
just chills the anxiety, chills the jitters out.
I love coffee though, so
you put yourself out there a lot. Like, you're in the public, you're meeting new people, you're putting a lot of stuff up on your social media, not just like, oh, just Instagram. No, like everything, like that's your thing. That's how you get your clients. That's how you make your money. That's how you guys do great business. How do you go about doing that and creating that brand of yourself? How do you be confident in doing that? You're not, like, there's never a anxiety of what people will think. Like, how do you get over that?
There is, man, lots of that. Lots. Because especially, like, well, getting in the business, and I know Dave was on your show, and he's like the best mentor I could have ever asked for. Encouraged me like with everything. So he's the one who's like, start making videos. He's like, that's where this is going. So I was not busy, right? I was new in the business. I had no clients, like, so I had time. So I was making tons of videos, like, just, and I wasn't confident at the time, right? Because I haven't even done a deal yet, and I'm making these videos. But over time, people were like, oh, he's still making these videos, right? So 2 years later, that's when people were like, okay, he must know what he's doing. He's made 100 videos. So that's where it really paid off. But the confidence thing is tough because there's like, I've gotten so many a lot of backlash. Yeah. And I've like, I feel like I get a lot of hate for it. Like, maybe not that much, but like.
Interesting.
Yeah, because.
Never would have thought.
Like, a lot of agents watch it, and if I say one thing wrong,
they're right on you for it, 100%.
Like, we've talked about it in our brokerage.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so that makes me feel, and like, I admit when I'm wrong. I'm wrong sometimes, right? I'm not perfect.
No, you're human.
Yeah. And that just happened, actually. I was, we stage our houses.
Yep.
So we bring in furniture.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so make it look nice, right? And not a lot of people do that. Because it's extra time, effort. Yeah, like anyone does.
It's extra labor time if you're not doing it yourself.
And we spend money on people staging, on people moving the furniture. So, and then we used to bring in air mattresses. Just to make the bed, right? To make it look like there's a bed in there. And
nice.
Stuff. Yeah, so it was
light. You're not lugging up a mattress from the brick.
When we were the only people in Sudbury staging, that was fine. Right? But then other people are starting to do it, and then just this happened a couple days ago, the mattress deflated during showings, right? So it's shitty.
Oh, it's funny. It's
exactly.
It is shitty, dude. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
The house still sold for 53 over asking, which is fine. But two agents were like happy that this happened to me and posted a picture on their social media. This is how you don't stage.
What? So and they mentioned you and everything?
They didn't mention me.
Okay, good.
But obviously, it was the exact same picture, so they were talking. So I have those pictures up on my wall now. So I'm like. I went right away. I spent $5,000 on new staging stuff, new beds that aren't going to deflate. Like, I just now we have to be at the best at this. So if anything, it fueled me to be better. But that's just like one example of like how I was anxious, man, when I saw like, two people like making fun of me on social media. I took
they're
it to
also
heart.
in that industry too.
Yeah,
right?
I took it to heart. Like I was like,
your buddies going by clicking photos. No.
Yeah, and I thought we were cool, you know, and like so it stung, and it but at the same time it really motivated me. Like I texted everyone that's part of my team, and I was like, guys, we have to be better. They're in a way they're right. Like maybe that's not the way of going about it, but they were right.
No,
we did screw
the
up.
bed shouldn't have deflated. That's it. Like,
yeah.
There's no, oh man, make a scene of it. Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah. So I
definitely handled it better than I might have. That's for sure. Oh man. Wow. Well, good for you responding that way. I think you took it as well as you could have.
Oh, I love it. I love when it happens, man. If you're not getting that kind of stuff, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Right?
You printed the photos and like you put.
I took a screenshot of their like stories.
Yeah.
and I put it up on. I'll show you after in our office. We're like, okay,
so it's up there.
Yeah,
dude, that's awesome.
Motivation, man.
Yeah,
that's the last thing they need.
In 2012, I think 2012. When were the Beijing Olympics? 2012 or 2008, so. Something like that. No, London 2012, 2008. That's right. Thank you. Vancouver 2010. So 2008, Michael Phelps won all of his Olympic all of his gold medals, right? Crazy, right? So where that ties in is in the year 2004, he didn't. So in 2004, he lost in 2 of his races. He got 6 gold and fell short in 2 races. One of them, the guy who beat him, I think is Ian Thorpe. He's an Australian swimmer. He was talking crap in a press conference with this interviewer saying, hey, like, he's never going to do it. He's never going to beat the record of 7. This is as close as he's going to get. Phelps printed that out, the quotes, highlighted the quotes, put them up in his locker at the pool. So you saying that, and I'm like, you know what? That's what that reminded me of. So I was like, that is insane. That is cool. And it worked, I mean, right?
Yeah,
so, like, you know, you took the lesson. Yeah, 100%.
That's awesome.
So now, you doing that, and then me hearing you do that, and it fired you up, and you dropped $5,000 on, you're like, no, all our housing stuff, that's the best stuff. We furbish the house, everything.
I got my stager, I told her, I was like, go shopping, like, buy whatever you need.
Yeah.
We just, and it's not just for me, right? Like, it's going to help our clients ultimately.
Right.
Right? So that's the way I, like, justify it, like, going, like, that extra mile, because it's, yeah, it'll help me provide better service, but ultimately it's the clients that are benefiting.
Right.
Which will be, we'll have even cooler, nicer listings. Can't wait.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a really cool way to do it. Like, did you have like a strategy that you implement when you sell homes or when you take clients through the homes, or do you just like usually answer their questions as you go? Like, what's that kind of like?
Mostly, yeah.
If you can
just go
that.
through. My biggest thing is, like, I get pride in steering people away from a certain house. So, like, yeah, I'm a salesperson, but, like, the good thing about my industry, and it's, like, a little bit, like, I'll just compare it to the car industry. Like, I have friends in there, which is awesome, is that I can sell any house.
Right.
Right? I'm not just, like, focused. I don't just have, like, I can only sell South End. So if someone comes to South End, I'm just, like, trying to pressure them into this house because that's the only one I have. But a realtor can sell any house on the market.
Any house to anybody.
So I don't need to pressure them ever.
Nice.
Into buying any house because there's more, right?
Yeah.
So I love that aspect of it. So I'm just there to educate. Like, okay, you love the house, but did you see this? Right?
Yeah.
You love the house, but there's a smell here. I can tell there probably was water here at one point.
Yeah.
And now it's getting to the point where I can just say, oh, I was in here 3 years ago, and they had a water issue.
Interesting. Cool.
So let's just make sure it's fixed. Right?
Yeah, like if it's fixed well, they did the weeping tile and everything correctly, patched on the wall, sealed everything backfilled with the right material.
Exactly. Which you don't always know for sure, but it's just trying to
even depending on who you hire to do it. Like, I've worked for people that if one boss was on site, he would have us like backfill with good material. Like your type 2, your good stuff, your sand, where the gas line is, whatever, 2 feet below and above, and then I'd have someone just be like, just backfill the clay you got. And I'm like, you can't do that. But again, if I'm just the guy behind the machine or something, it's like, well, you can't, what do you say? It's like the boss's dad.
Oh, man.
It is a tricky spot.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, it's like, they don't want you to say anything. It's like, well, we're going to save how much money not going to Etsy to buy, like, pounds or tons of whatever, right? So, interesting.
That's interesting too.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like in that.
It's funny when you get in an industry, the things.
Yeah, like that's kind of what
you'll learn,
and that's what I'm in now. Like that's something that going through school and then working in office work and then being like, no, I love this like design construction and like I love the construction industry, but not for the people you meet, but for the things you learn, right? And that's kind of what I share with people. And I want to go back to something you said after in a second, but when share things with people and you learn things. Like, that's one of the pieces of advice, because I feel like that's why it impresses me so much that you go around, like, you have that knowledge to share and everything, because I'm like, I don't think I'm qualified to give advice on anything.
Oh, yeah, you are.
But that's the thing. People have said that, but I'm thinking, no. Like, maybe not on this, or I've done this only a couple years of, or a couple of this, and people are like, yo, they're asking me questions, like, oh, man. But
you just give them advice of what you know. And you
exactly.
know certain things. Right?
Yeah. And that's something that I've told many people, like, my age, they're like, I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, what do you like to learn about? And pick that. Because then you'll never run out of things in the industry to learn.
Well, but there's your advice, man.
That's it, right? Like, that's the one piece. And then I had a buddy of mine, Chris Cacchiotti?
Yeah.
So we were doing like a live, and he just started his own show. And I'm not going to plug it because this is my show, but check it out later. And I love Chris. But we were chatting, and I was like, dude, I'm going to give you some advice. Like, he had just released one. And you said it earlier. You said, when it reminded me of this when you said there are, like, when you were saying something along the lines of, oh, you're still putting videos out 2 years later? I told Chris, I was like, dude, here's the thing. Anybody can do one episode of a podcast. Anybody can do 2. Most people can do 3. But I met this guy who was like, he's got the #1 Indigenous podcast in the world. And I met him 2 years ago at a conference when I just started mine. And he was like, 83% of podcasts don't have more than 3 episodes. I was like, what the? That was his statistic that he had at the time. Granted, a year and a half, 2 years ago, which it's changed a lot in 2 years, but it was big back then. All right, it was crazy. This isn't something that turned over like last night.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I told him, I was like, dude, here's the thing. This is the other piece of advice. I'm like, and you showed me that you know that with that example where discipline and consistency. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, I do 5 episodes. Well, why the hell don't I have thousands of views or downloads? It's like, well, not yet. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
And like you were saying when we were setting up, like every time you set up, you learn something. You're like, oh, you can do this a little better. Or every person you meet shows you one little tip and trick. Right? Those things compile. Yeah. And eventually you're the expert.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're showing people, you're like, oh, I've been through all of these situations. Yeah. Right? And that's like, I feel like that's just how it is.
Yeah.
You can never, like, and that's why studying only gets you so far. Like, you have to make mistakes. You have to go out there. You gotta do. That's how I learn. I just do more than I prepare, but I make a lot of mistakes.
Right, and to that, though, if you don't make mistakes, you're not trying anything really new.
Yeah.
And then you don't grow, you don't learn, you don't become better, you don't get more money, you don't have a more successful... Mm-hmm. Like, all these... This whole ripple effect all starts from people being afraid to make mistakes. And I think an issue is, and why I'm even more intrigued that you say, nah, I still post a lot of videos and stuff and photos despite it still being anxious. Because the big fear is somebody calling you out on your shit, and that happened. That happened to you. So now you're like,
lots.
Cool. It's plastered on my office. Yeah. Next issue.
And you know what's cool? You make, I'm preparing. I'm going to make a video about it.
Nice, yeah.
You know? And it's not to like put them down in any way. No. It's to just explain like what goes behind the scenes a little bit, right? Yeah. And I'm just gonna say how like it's gonna be more of like a motivational thing, kind of like I explained to you. Like, it just made me want to level up and just work harder. Yeah. Right? Like a lesson learned without. And I think, and I'm excited to see how you go about saying that. And I think if you do it pretty much the exact same way you already did, which I think is what's gonna happen anyway. I think that'll be awesome to see, because then it's not like these people for calling me out. What the hell do they know? I mean, I'm not mad at them at all. It's like it's like, alright, cool. Like, cool, 2 + 2 is 4, not 5. Right. Yeah. They showed you the mistake or something that you could prove, I guess. Yeah, and I showed it to my client too that it's her house it was in. Yeah. I was like, hey, just so you know, here's what happened. And she's like, oh, I don't care. Nice. Like, it's better than having nothing in there. Yeah. She's like, forget it. Next house. Yeah. Oof, that'd be bad. But nice. Yeah. That's good though. That's good that it's something that it was a moment you could learn from. Interesting. Because I don't know how well I would take something like that. I would hope to take it, and I hope people making mistakes I would hope that they take it the same way that you did. Like, in stride, lesson learned, move forward, address it,
take ownership for it and then go forward.
I screwed up for sure, but I just like what gets me through it is like knowing that they're probably in a worse spot than I am.
Yeah.
Right? Like to be petty like that and post something like that, I just feel like you have to be feeling something negative, right? Like I try not to. I try to encourage everyone that I meet, kind of like you were saying. We were talking about Pat earlier, right? He's like
I love Pat. Shout out to Pat.
Yeah. Shout out to
he's
Pat.
A dope dude.
He's that guy.
Yeah.
He's just anyone you talk to, anyone that's trying something, even if they're like failing at it at first, he's encouraging.
Nice.
Right? So there's people like that, and then I feel like there's other people that maybe are unhappy in their lives for certain reasons, and they're trying to put people down instead of like try to make themselves better. Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
maybe I definitely think there are people like that though, and I definitely don't. I don't know personally why. I'm sure, like you said, though, it's an insecurity thing. I'm sure at the end of the day, we all had points where like we needed somebody else to feel worse so we could feel better. I'm glad that part of me is way back there, if ever. But I think it comes, like you said, insecurity, and then I've had it though, and here's one you might be able to attest to. Going throughout life, and in your early 20s even especially, you lose a lot of friends because they don't have like a similar level of ambition for something than you do, right? It's clear to me that and I'm driven towards these people as well, but it's clear to me that you're driven, you're passionate, you're ambitious, you know what you love, you know what you want to do, and you're like, that's the end goal, full speed ahead, foot on the gas, all the way there. Whatever you can do, getting there.
Is that good though?
It's the best.
You think so?
Yeah. I think it's good for you and the people who are on that same playing field. Yeah. I don't think it's good like I'm holding on to friends of mine who are like, if I'm like, yo, I want the show, I want to have all these cool people, I want to do like 2 episodes every week, like have all this crazy stuff, I want to make this much money this year, I want to like work on this many houses, all that stuff. And then they're like, whoa, I don't really even know what I want to do. And you're like, you can give them all the encouragement you want, but at the end of the day, it's like the playing field's a little different. As much as you try to hold them up and hold them there, at the end of the day, it's kind of something that they need to do themselves. Yeah. And that's something that's like, to your point, it might not be good for them in that case, but I think it's healthy. I think. Maybe.
I have mixed feelings. Like, I agree with you, and I think there's a time and place, because there's some friends I envy because they're chill. They're more chill than me.
Yeah, they're more relaxed.
They're still getting stuff done. They're super happy. Yeah. You know, life's great. They just don't want to be working evenings as much as I am. Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, what? Like, do I have to? Yeah. Like, am I doing the right thing? Like, you know?
Yeah, it's like a second guess thing.
Yeah, yeah. Almost. Like, do I need to work this hard? But then I think it's just built in me to like be busy all the time. Yeah. Right. I keep my mind going and keep having a goal in mind. So that is my.
That's your idea like, approach and everything.
Life and being happy, which I do take time off too. But other people, it's they don't have the same ambitions. Right. And I don't think it's necessarily like there's different levels to it where it's like, okay, some people just not like they don't work as hard and that's okay. But then there's other people that they're just happy. Yeah. Right. It's just their default. Yeah. Yeah. Which is cool. So it's like sometimes those people bring me back down to earth. Yeah. Like, dude, take a night off, man. Chill. Yeah. You know, so then I do.
Yeah. You're like, no, nothing's getting done.
So I think we're both in the same boat where we just, like, have to be doing something, right, to stay busy, but...
No, I think so. Now, where did that approach for you stem from? Because I had a conversation that I want to get into that I had this week with my boss. This week with my boss. But how did that stem for you? Like, where do you think that came from? Because you don't just get that taught. Like, that has to be instilled in you. It's not just like I can go, hey dude, quit smoking. And you're like, oh my god, cold turkey. One day you woke up, you're just ambitious. Like, what do you think?
That's a good question.
Thanks, man. That's what I do.
Thanks.
That's what I do.
See, you're becoming an expert.
Yeah, one day.
I don't know. I actually don't know. I think it's my competitiveness. Yeah. Definitely my competitiveness.
Nice. Could be like the people you were nurtured around, or
but my dad's not super competitive. Neither is my mom. my like I'm competitive to a fault.
Right.
But like my dad's always been a hard worker. Like he'd still hang out with us all the time, but he'd be in his office late, working late. Like he's doing real estate.
That's just him.
Yeah.
That's his thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just there working along. But like it's not like he would ignore us. Like we go, "Oh, Dad, you want to go outside?" Yes, right away.
Yeah.
But when he's not, like when he wasn't with us, he'd be working. So I think I kind of like maybe absorbed some of that. But I think I just like, not in a conceited way, but like I just want to be the best.
100%.
Right? Like work
That's
really
the way
hard.
to think about it. Yeah.
And until like I always talk to my broker like Dave, and I'm always like, I just want to have the most sales in Sudbury for an individual agent.
Let's go. Yeah.
And then he's always like, well, you need to take something. Like, is that really what you want? Like, is that going to make you happy? And then I start to second guess it. So I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, like,
David, you're so smart.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So I don't even know. I don't even know. So I'm just kind of going with the flow, and I'm just trying to stay okay with not being the best. It burns up sometimes, but like, I also have
that's where that anxiety on the weekend kicks in. Yeah, I get it.
Like I see like other people's success, and like it, and I'm always like, oh, I got to beat them. But it's not in a bad way. Like I like these guys; they're doing great stuff, and like I'm taking some of their ideas, and I'm sure they are vice versa, right? So it's like a friendly competition, but like it's like when you're playing against someone in a sport. Yeah. You just hate them for that little bit, but then you see them off.
Yeah, like, you can shake hands and stuff. Buddy, let's go.
Right?
Yeah. There's the conversation I was alluding to was I'm sitting at the beef in Bird with my boss. Well, my boss, he would hate me calling that. He's my partner, whatever. I'll get into it later, but he's we were discussing like why it's tough for people to find people to work. Like it's like there's people who are good but just don't want to work, and then there's people who are like, oh, clock in at 8, clock out at 5. They're not going to do anything more. There's nobody who wants to show up, wants to learn, okay with making mistakes. Whereas that's where he's like, dude, like that's like I appreciate that. That's like what you. And I was like, dude, let me buy you lunch. He's like, no, like that's what I'm thanking you for. And basically, the thing we got into was it's a competition thing, not just for sport. Like you take that. The way you would be on like the hockey rink or the way you'd be on the basketball court, actually way better example for you, right? Yeah, what am I thinking? It's the way you'd be on the court. Like at the end of the day, like you're scoring more basketball. Like you want to be the best player on the court when you're on the court, right? And that's the same thing that I think I transfer. Where it could be at the gym when I'm like competing in jiu-jitsu, where I'm like, okay, I need to train that much harder. My like everybody else, my weight class, my belt level, everything. And then any guy I'm going to see in my bracket, I want to work harder than them. I know I have to like paint this picture in my head that I have more struggle that I've been through than them in order to achieve more and be better than them in that time. But it's the same thing where it's like now with work, it's like, well, like you said with this, you're learning everything every day. You want to get better. You want to be the best. You want to learn everything you can regarding your industry. But then if you go to something else, you're not going to half-ass it. Right? You're not just going to be like, my relationship, 40% of my effort. It's like, no, 100% in this, 100% in this, 100% in this, right? And where it stems from, and then being able to apply that to different areas of your life, like relationships, friendships, work, your hobbies, whatever, right? And then using that to propel you to the next level. It also, one of my best friends who lives in Australia right now, he's like, dude, sometimes that gets intimidating. Like back to the like people you surround yourself with. He's like, sometimes people will be like, Tristan, being your friend is kind of tiring. You're always motivated, and I'm like, not as much. And I just want to chill. And you're like, no, come on, man, we got to do this. You got to make more money. You got to do this. What are you doing? You hustling? You hustling? Yeah. It's like, not as much as you, clearly. So it's little things that I'm like, applying that mindset, I think, is something that goes overlooked, but super important.
And on that point, I used to think my mindset was the only way you should live your life. But then I started to realize, like, it's not everyone that wants to do what I want to do. Right. Right? So we're like that. Yeah. But other people are okay just chilling. And, like, I'm completely okay with that now. Not that I wasn't before. It's just, like, I appreciate it. It's, like, good for you. You're living the life the way you want to. I'm not going to try to force you to invest all your money and, like, it's...
Yeah, if that's not what they want to do.
Do what you want to do. Right. And just do it to the best of your abilities. Right?
Yeah, I'm still getting into that. You're like one step ahead on these things. You're like, that's what it is. The anxiety on the weed you get. I'm like, okay, so that's what it is.
I told you, I just realized it's like, you know, and like.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, but
all the time,
I haven't yet. So I had a week where I'm like, oh no,
so
I'm shaking.
Where does your competitiveness stand from? And like when you say specifically like, I need to beat this guy or I need to be better than this person. Like, what's the ultimate goal? I guess, and I'm still trying to figure it out for myself.
Yeah,
I don't know why it's in me, so I'm wondering like if you have an answer for you.
Excuse me, great question by the way, dude. Great question.
Yeah.
I think I grew up with 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger. So that, I can say maybe. My dad's similar to yours, probably guys like, what, early to late 50s, probably? Yeah. They're that generation, right? Like, if they're not working, they're not living. Just interesting concept. But anyways, so I think between that and then having those examples very, like, directly accessible to you, and being exposed to those people, I think, is what triggered it. Playing a lot of sports growing up, having the brothers, always being competitive, and then now wanting to be not so much better than everybody at everything, because there's 0 chance I'm going to be a better like realtor than you. It's like, that's not my thing, that's not my lane. Right? But it's like, well, I want to have like whatever I'm doing, I want to be the best at it in my scenario. So like same thing like with the jiu-jitsu stuff, and then with the podcasting specifically was one I told Pat 2 weeks ago. I was like, dude, this is the one. It's kind of I don't care who has one, I'm gonna be number 1. But what does that mean, right? And like the goal could be like, oh, have number 1. It's like, no, the goal always is to educate people and like provide a form of education and knowledge that people could take from, where if they don't know you, but they see me, and then they hear what you have to say, and they hear you say something about like the way like the real estate world works from the beginning, or what you even said about your own personal experience with the anxiety over there, like that's how you know you're drained, and you tap in and you recognize and you're aware that that's what your body needs and how you go about recovering, and that's okay. People hearing that, if they don't know you, is very, very powerful. Because I don't before this, I've never met you, so I've seen your face everywhere. But other than that, there was no connection formed. So hearing you say that, and then being able to build that and be educated based on your experiences, I believe is the overall goal for me. You have to be able to switch it to giving back. Right? Because when it's for you, it's good to be selfish. But if the end goal is to be selfish, there's no happiness that's going to come from that, right? But if you go online, you see your reviews, and it's all knowledgeable, that's your impact that you're leaving. That's what your community is saying about you, right? And then even you'll respond to those, like everything. That's you, that's your influence, that's your impact, and that's what you're building. And that's what you're giving back. You're giving back and creating those experiences for those people. And that's why people come back to you, and that's why they see you, and that's why they love you and appreciate you and what you're doing. It's because that experience you create for them being who you are.
Which is like, the ultimate goal, I guess, Right. I'm doing it for the clients.
But
also I want to be the best at providing the best for the clients.
But that attitude and mindset more so is what's going to help you achieve that. But it's like when you achieve that, it's not like, oh, you cut all these corners and stepped on all these people and stabbed all these people in the back. It's like, no, you got this many people that dream home for less and you make more and all this great stuff. And like, that's the impact you're leaving.
I never ever want to screw someone over or stab someone in the back. Like, I'll encourage every realtor like to work as hard as they want and encourage them, right? And it's because you just can't sleep at night if you do that stuff. And I wouldn't know because I don't do that stuff, but
exactly, right? I'd assume. But that's something that's not. I did like a trip to South America for 2 weeks in Ecuador, and like the whole focus of the trip was to give back and provide a service. And they focused on the pillars that it was with me to we, but they had the pillars where it was like food, education, water. Oh no. I guess one was probably education, and if I didn't already say that, whatever. There were 5 of them, and listening to each of them and what they go And I guess coming back, they're like, how are you going to implement one of these? It was like food, water, whatever, right? And then how are you going to implement one of these into your everyday life? And it's like, are you going to provide a service that helps people like get more access to food or cheaper food or more cost-effective food? Or are you going to have people, in your case, like you're educating people, you're making people, you're creating an experience for them. And like even doing one of these, like that's what you're doing now, that's what you do when you do your own show. And then you're creating that experience for them to be more educated. And then they feel like a connection to you for providing that information to them. And it's doing it to educate people, because that was the main one that stuck with me. I'm like, I'm not really a restaurant guy. I don't really know how to create water. Like, this is my lane. This is what I know. What I do know is how to get a message across. And if I don't know the answers, chances are I could find somebody who does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of my, like, oh, can you do this? No, but I know somebody who can. Right? Tristan, need you to sell this home for that. You know?
Yeah.
Easy. Right? So that's kind of the consensus. But doing it for somebody else, or end goal for someone else, that's it. Like, that's how I find
that's true habit.
That's how I keep, how I don't be conceited. Where it's like, I'm number one, you're like cheering above the crowd, but nobody's there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nobody's there to support you, nobody really cares. It's like, you're the best, but
are you?
Are you?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's where what David said, tying into happiness and number one sales, but like how that works. But if you do it by helping everybody achieve, educating everybody, coming on shows, doing favors for people, like, oh man, this guy, like, I'm gonna be happy for you when you achieve that. You know, like,
it's funny you say that, because it's true. Dave always, because I say to Dave, and because he comes to see me all the time, like, how you feeling, man? How you feeling? And I tell him, like, man, I want to be the best.
Number one, yeah.
Every time, right? But then he's always like, he's like, that's great, but he's like, what you have to do is like, how can you provide the best service? That's what he always brings it back to.
Amazing.
And I'm like, that, and that's how you become the best.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, man, Dave is worth tons to me, right?
Yeah,
like,
I could imagine.
Just guiding me, and every time, like, these things happen, like, on my social media, he's always got my back, right? So it's cool.
Yeah.
To have someone so supportive.
Yeah, I can imagine. And even when, like, I had him on my show, he was like, the feedback I got, they're like, oh, how do you know Dave's so awesome? He's the best. And I'm like, yeah, he's a pretty good guy. Like, from what I know in the conversation we had. So I was like, yeah, he's been nothing but nice, nothing but educational, like, just down to earth good dudes. I was like, this is awesome. So yeah, stuff like that, I think it gets overlooked, but I think more people need a David. I like to tell them that, or like somebody to say that type of message where it's like, be number one. Just how you get there is important. Right, so I think your goal could still be the same. It's just how you get there, right?
Exactly,
so,
and be okay if you just make it a little bit slower.
Yeah, which is, I think, in the podcast game. And
so I gotta focus on, like, I got a baby on the way, you know, like, how am I gonna be the best or like, when I say the best is like do the most sales, and if I want to spend time with the family, which I would
100%
really
you will,
and so that's gonna be like a new type of winning.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like I'm not experiencing that at all, so I don't know. I know people say, like, yo, when you're with these people, 100% you're there. And when you're doing this, you're 100% zoned in.
10x. Grant Cardone.
Yeah. So
10x whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. So doing that and then being able to focus in when you need to focus in I think that's huge.
But it also helps. There's a different fire in me now. It's like, right.
More people to provide to.
Way.
For.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's not just for me.
Right.
So it's cool.
Yeah. Do you have like to kind of wrap this up, do you have like a overall experience or overall lesson that you've learned since you kind of graduated high school that's shaped who you are?
Well, honestly, and it's not really a quote or anything, it's just making mistakes.
Yeah.
And I know everyone always talks about that, but that's really how, like, I live my life. And if you talk to any of my friends, they'll tell you, like, they always laugh at me because I do funny things, because it's not on purpose, but, like, I kind of subconsciously, like, try to fail at different things, like, try to do it a different way, I don't know, and I always, like, I spill something or I screw up, right? But, like, I realize, okay, you can't do it this way, but it also helps you develop new systems that eventually something will click and it'll work, and then it becomes a new discovery, I guess you can say. So it's like, live your life, like, don't be scared to make mistakes, and don't think about it that way. Just try a bunch of things. Yeah,
and it's trying to, like, I want to find that point of failure so that the next time that point is just a bit further,
Mm-hmm.
and then a bit further, and then a bit further, and then it gets to such a point, and I make this relationship with with your comfort zone. The more things you do, the bigger your comfort zone gets, right? You go skydiving once, terrifying. You go 500 times, you're pretty comfortable
Mm-hmm.
at it, right? So comfort zone's here, and all of a sudden it gets so big that you can never leave it, and everything you do is just easy. But you have to do that by making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So.
And if you're like looking to get into something and you bought like 5 books on it,
Mm-hmm.
you're like trying to read up and like I'll be ready after I'm done these 5 books. Like don't even read the books, just start.
Yeah.
You know, like the books will help a little bit. Like read them as you go, but it's way more important that you just jump in, start right away.
Yeah.
Like put out that shitty website that you tried making.
Yeah.
You know? You'll get feedback. People will encourage you, and then you make changes. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think that's the best way.
Make mistakes.
Yeah.
Nice, dude. Awesome. Where can people find you? Anything you want to plug or say?
Yeah, on all, I guess, social media, Real Ritchie, Tristan Ritchie Realtor on Facebook. Post a lot about real estate, obviously, but
Yeah.
that's mostly.
Nice.
I do have a podcast too, so I'll have
Nice,
it
yeah.
online as well. So.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
hell yeah.
That'd be fun. I'd feel more comfortable talking more. But I feel having people on my show, I'm like, okay, it's about them. But I've gotten way better over time speaking more. So like in the episodes, I'm not just like, all right, next thing to ask you about. It's like I can relate to this too. So
You need a mix of both, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I try to ask people questions too when I'm being